So today we are going to be reading a personal narrative where our narrator or our author has a serious illness called polio. So I'm going to read the introduction to polio, let you know a little more about it before we get into the story and the read along that we're going to be reading. So again, this is the introduction to polio. Polio is a serious and contagious illness caused by a virus. The polio virus spreads through contact with feces, or less commonly, being coughed or sneezed on. Most people infected with the virus have no symptoms. For others, it results in flu like symptoms such as fever, sore throat, nausea, headache, and tiredness. But when the polio virus affects the brain and spinal cord, it is very serious and can cause severe symptoms, including muscle weakness and paralysis, which may be temporary or permanent. While polio can infect anyone, it mostly affects children. Stories and drawings as early as the year 1500 BCE suggest that people have gotten sick with polio for a long time. In 1789, British physician Michael Underwood published the first description in the medical literature, and in 1840, a German doctor named it infantile paralysis. Polio epidemics increased in the early 1800s, and polio epidemics occurred regularly in the United States throughout the first half of the 20th century. Because polio is so contagious, these epidemics were very frightening, and communities treated the threat very seriously. Swimming pools were closed, and children were not allowed in other public gathering places, such as movie theaters. In the summer, when polio epidemics were most likely to occur, some parents kept their children indoors and made them wear gloves. This sounds a lot like the coronavirus, y'all. One of the most famous polio patients was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In 1921, when he was 39 years old and already an important and well known politician, he developed polio. While he recovered and worked hard on rehabilitation, his legs were permanently paralyzed. Even so, he was elected president in 1932 and led the United States through the Great Depression and much of World War II. During his presidency, he created the National Fund for Infantile Paralysis, later called the March of Dimes, which raised money to help polio patients and to research vaccine or a cure for polio. The March of Dimes funded research by two main scientists, Dr. Jonas Salk and Dr. Albert Sabin, who were both working on inventing vaccines but using different approaches. Dr. Salk's vaccine was ready first in 1953. He was so sure of his vaccine that he started testing it on himself and his family. Some of his lab workers also chose to have it tested on themselves. The results were promising. No one got sick, and everyone developed polio antibodies. In 1954, Dr. Salk and his researchers vaccinated almost 2 million healthy school children. A year later, the results were in. The vaccine worked. Over the next 2 years, polio rates in the United States fell over 80%. Soon after, in 1959, Dr. Albert Sabin's version of the vaccine was also proven safe and effective. Both Dr. Salk and Dr. Sabin chose to make the details of their research and how to manufacture their vaccines public. If they had chose to keep it a secret, they may have made a lot of money selling their vaccines. But they decided it was important to share so that the vaccines can be produced and distributed as quickly and inexpensively as possible. Today, thanks to those vaccinations, polio has been eliminated in the Western Hemisphere, which includes the United States, Mexico, Canada, Europe, and South and Central America. While polio is present in a few countries, including Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria, programs dedicated to vaccination are working hard to wipe out polio worldwide. All right, so again, our story for today, our narrator had polio. All right, so we need to understand that this disease was very serious, it was very contagious, and it affected a lot of children back then. All right, let's get on to our read aloud.